Bay on his jiu-jitsu competition, the most dynamic fight I've seen in a long time.
In a week.
No, I don't watch him.
I mean, you have 4 kids. So.
As a Pride guy and not a UFC guy, and watching UFC, I gotta say that was a like WWE level, but real. Like just the way you guys were all over the mats, it was just amazing.
Yeah, I mean.
Broad.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, like, you probably don't know who Chael Sonnen is, right? But he says, like, it's a business partnership. You and your opponent are necessary for you to have a good match. So it wouldn't have been a good match without TJ. So I thank you for bringing out the best in me. But good segue into, we have an announcement to make before we get in the podcast. For those of you who have already seen the Instagram story, so surprise to me, I won match of the night, and so Joe was gracious enough to reward the fighters with a little bit of cash. Nothing world changing, but $150. But that's not such a big deal. But what is a big deal is what we can do with that $150. Because let's face it, like I'm probably just going to waste it on bomb launch or something silly, right? So what I want to do is I want to use it to help people. So I'm going to match that $150. So now we have $300. I don't know if those of you who are following our Instagram account, but we have this post for the President's Day promotion. Again, grapplers, you can come in free until March 1st. But we put a little post out there, just a silly thing, just like who would win in a fight? Teddy Roosevelt, a grappling match, Teddy Roosevelt or Vladimir Putin.
Teddy Roosevelt.
Oh, right, so there's that one vote, right? And the basis being that Teddy Roosevelt did jiu-jitsu and actually kind of pioneered it in our country. Most people don't know that. And Putin, until Putin came into power, Roosevelt was actually our most decorated martial artist in modern political history. So these two heads of state are 1 and 2, and so just as an intellectual exercise, we want people to comment. Now, what does that have to do with charity? Well, all we want is no money, nothing. Jiu-jitsu guys, I know if you saw somebody getting hurt in the street, you would come and help them. Nobody's asking you to ball your fist, nobody's asking you to get somebody in a kimono. All we're asking is to go to that post, vote, like, share, tag 180 turning lives around in the comment, and that's it. For every time that someone does that, we're going to add another $500. So if one person does this right now, instead of $300, I'm donating $305, and so on. And we just want to spread the word, because at the end of the day, what's the point of learning martial arts and doing these things if we can't protect people who need protecting? And I'm sure that nobody condones women getting beaten, harassed, and stalked. And so I think that that's a better use for that $150 than me just spending it on something silly and ephemeral. So we're asking for your help to help the women in our area. Jiu-jitsu guys, I'm counting on you. Let's really make our presence known. Let's really help people who help need it. Otherwise, we're just hurting each other for no reason. So, Doc, with that, we did want to talk about something today, speaking of protecting women, and that is how women's health is very emotionally taxing and, quite frankly, gaslighting. I know this is kind of a thing of ours that we say it, but we're not just complaining, right? Because anybody, like Teddy Roosevelt said, right? Anybody can criticize somebody else, but that's not heroic, right? What we want to do is we want to be in the arena. So Doc had a great idea, and would you tell them about this lovely idea that you got to get us into the arena to help these women?
If you've been following the social media, we have a women's health fertility support group, because if you're familiar with the wives' tale, right, you've heard it. She adopted a baby and got pregnant, and we use that analogy about the keys, like losing your keys or looking for your keys with a full bladder and the kid screaming. There is, it's emotionally taxing, which creates cortisol, which inhibits how the brain communicates with the reproductive ones. But what is it about adopting the baby? And again, you should adopt children. We're not against adoption. But what is it about that woman who adopted the baby? And frankly, it's just that she's no longer trying to get pregnant. She's not getting in the way of herself mentally. She has a baby to care for, and then the brain starts to communicate with the reproductive organs. So for me, after 20 years, like trying to kind of crack the code of like how to help people get to where they are, besides the IVF, because people fail IVF too. You know, they can 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. What is it? What is it that we can do to kind of open up that hormonal cascade? And I really believe that creating an environment of success and sharing stories, not just of me. Don't listen to me and Greg tell you that you're going to get pregnant, right? We don't want to talk at you. We want you to experience it for yourself. So we are actually pulling from our 20 years of experience, other patients who have had success. This is not open to just people in the practice. Anybody going through fertility, you are free to come down here. You don't have to be a patient. But I believe a story about a woman getting pregnant, or a story about a woman who got acupuncture and got pregnant, or a story of the patient we lost track of and was pregnant down the road, we want to share those. And when we start talking about that, right, we are creating a narrative, we are internalizing the ability to be pregnant, and yes, we can talk about how you were told that your eggs are bad, you're running out of time, you're too old, your mother-in-law's on your ass, the bitch at the baby shower, like all these sound bites that we hear in the treatment room, right? That's enough of that. Or your AMH levels, or your blood work, or your progesterone, or your Oura ring, or your fertility and P monitors and all that stuff. We're gonna throw that out the window, and really what we wanna do is just hear from you, hear your troubles, but also bounce back from somebody who's been there already.
Right.
And know that she got pregnant, right? So we can internalize the success. So what do we say, right? You're ovulating, they took eggs out of you. You have a good uterine lining. We've worked with you and your period's regular, right, with the acupuncture. And then your blood work is somewhat better. The AMH improves over the treatment. So remember to reintroduce the intimacy, because that's going to be a big piece of the puzzle, regardless of whether you're doing IVF or not. So let's get together and let's talk about stuff that helps, and work through the stuff that's kind of emotionally agitating.
Right.
That's
Right.
getting in the way.
It's very easy for us or for the patients in the process to it becomes abstract. It becomes about numbers, it becomes about cycles,
Yeah.
deadlines, appointments, right? And you
It's
forget,
too much information.
Yeah, it's a lot
Yeah.
of information, and it becomes like compartmentalized, like this little bite-sized bit, and it becomes overwhelming, I find. It's like this after this after this. And one thing that I'm noticing too, to your point, is that I feel a lot of times our patients, they have a lot of things they want to express. But I feel like every woman is different, but I feel like they have an internal timer as to which they feel that, oh no, I'm talking too much about this. It cannot. And we know as a practitioner, it's actually healthy for them to get it out.
Yeah.
But because of the social conditioning, they feel like I'm always talking about my struggles. I don't want to burden this person with that. And that's what we're here for. That's what we're paid to
When
do.
you talk about the condition, or you obsess about the condition, you become the condition. And I would say this, and it's a product of society, because we know that women in sort of like indigenous native cultures will use breastfeeding as a way to monitor populations in a tribe for birth control, right? So if your brain's getting messages of, there's a child suckling at your breast, and it could be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, you're not gonna get pregnant. So if you're getting messages of your asshole boss, intimacies out the window,
These numbers
it gets
are right.
You're getting these, and listen, this isn't a bold statement or complicated in any way, or controversial, but people are complicated and women are complicated physiologically. So what is it that we can kind of simplify and get to the root cause? So if your job is stressful, life is stressful, and you're getting all these signals, then guess what? It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But if we can create a space where we can talk through this, you can see somebody else where again, it's a story.
Yeah.
If we can internalize that narrative of success, because we've seen it, not just me, not me and Greg, we're not going to do this for you. We've done it before. I feel that it was very helpful, and we're really motivated to get it started again. So I'm really super psyched about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are the topics that, from what you've seen, like what do you think is like the most pressing thing that needs to be on the table?
I think from my clinical experience, we could talk about the 49-year-old woman without a cervix that got pregnant after failing 11 IVFs. I think that's like a starting point, and that's like that's a gold standard. If she can get pregnant, you can get pregnant. So I'll share a story from this, which I think is the best, excellent. I had a patient that was coming in, was getting bombarded. I remember her telling me, "Oh man, I have to go gluten-free. I can't eat pizza." No, eat the pizza. If not eating pizza is a stressor for you, just eat the pizza. Gluten is not the root cause of why you're not getting pregnant. Now that's a patient kind of left the practice. She got overwhelmed, and I get it. So I invited her to the fertility support group. She got pregnant. Here's what happens. She decided right before the transfer, even though she had failed a couple transfers, that her and her husband were going to take a road trip up to Boston to see a comedy show. So they listened to comedy, laughing all the way to grandma's house, laughing all the way back, ha ha ha, open sleigh, goes for her transfer and gets pregnant. So other than the cliche of laughter being the best medicine here, what was it that worked for her? It wasn't the acupuncture, she did the procedure, she did and it was the fact that her and her husband blew off work, blew off all the extra bullshit in life, and laughed all the way there. And then that oxytocin release, that nesting, that relationship, that intimacy, wasn't even physical intimacy, it was just like relationship stuff, opened up the brain, started communicating with the reproductive organs, and had a successful transfer. So yes, laughter is the best medicine, but the punchline here is I would tell all women who are going through this, blow off work. Like blow off work. You need a note? I'll write you a note. You threw your back out. Take your husband, go to Mount Airy Lodge, sit in a champagne hot tub, and just really focus on that, and forget about the pee sticks, forget about the Oura rings, forget about what your fertility specialist told you.
So much for corporate wellness, huh?
Corporate wellness.
So you telling the patient.
Well, I mean, if you have something called corporate wellness, you know that there's a problem,
Yeah,
right?
right.
If you need to bring in people to help your employees relax,
That
there
is
you go,
true.
right?
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
thing.
and I love how the solution is never giving them less work. It's always giving them more work, right?
Yes,
It's like,
yes.
oh, do this thing on company time,
Yeah.
but don't do it for too long.
Right. No, but definitely blow off work and prioritize, like focus on the relationship, and hopefully we can talk about these tidbits on
So Doc, aside from like the hyper focusing on
Mhm.
monitoring on these like the different metrics, what are the things that you think in like in your patients' daily lives that they're doing that's creating these barriers that they need to blow things off? Like, how come their life just is like a manageable stress level? Like,
Mhm.
are you seeing a pattern here into like how the patients' lives are constructed? Is it all different?
So again, it's not in their heads, because everybody will tell them it's in your head. It's dismissive. It's in your brain. It's a brain chemistry thing. When on top of the work, when you have not getting pregnant as a top priority or top of mind, or occupying real estate or taking up space in your brain pan, that itself, the thinking about it on top. So stressors are chemical, physical, and emotional, right? That we're all familiar with. So coupled with, let's just say, nutrition being a chemical stressor, maybe we're eating the wrong things, or physical stressors like being in pain or being uncomfortable. I think that sort of like disruptor, the challenge to how the brain communicates with the reproductive organs is the biggest thing. The pee sticks, the Oura rings, the disappointment. Like, we have to take a break from it, right? Even if it's 20 minutes. I think the mechanism of acupuncture, 20 minutes, the endorphin release, cutting the cortisol is a big piece of it. But that 20 minutes just to yourself, not being badgered by your own thoughts, I think goes a long way.
Especially if you think about the mechanism, right? Like, as I've noticed, and you can tell me because you've been doing it longer, but I've noticed that, if a person isn't necessarily going at the speed that they want, and it doesn't necessarily mean they failed, it's just if they have it in their mind they should be this far along and they're not far
Oh,
along
the
enough,
timeline?
right? Yeah.
Okay.
And they become despondent, but I notice that they start to withdraw and become more isolated from friends and family because they don't want to talk about it too much. But it sounds like what you're saying is that's actually the opposite of what they should do. They should be kind of being lighter about it, still spending time with their family, getting that bond, getting those good positive hormones to kind of
It's
even them out.
personal, right? People dropping out of the workforce, I guess in a way is like
No, not workforce, like their family life. Like, I'm
Well,
saying, like,
no.
yeah.
Workforce is like some women actually being around other women getting pregnant caused them to leave the job because they
Yeah.
couldn't get
Yeah,
it.
that's what I mean,
Integrated
like the
rest of
isolated,
fertility. Like dropping out and unplugging from society is not really a good way. Maybe it is. It's almost like an autocorrect or what would you call it? Like a auto buffer or something. Like maybe physically leaving the workspace to try to get focused on pregnancy. I think is not necessarily bad.
Right, but just to clarify, I'm not talking about like the dramatic stuff. I'm talking about like they're still going to work, they're still dealing with their stressors, but like they don't want to spend time with people because maybe their friends all have children.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Right, but
yeah.
what I'm saying is, it sounds like if they're still getting other stressors in their life, like it sounds like you're talking about them like quitting or taking a sabbatical. I'm talking about they're still attending, but now they're not going to social engagements. They're not spending time with it. So I'm saying that sounds like the opposite of what they should be doing because
Yes. But getting back to that timeline you mentioned, we say everybody gets pregnant. It's not a matter of if, it's the when that we have to let go. But unfortunately, in their own minds, right? I think this is where the big problem is. Everybody wants to be pregnant yesterday.
Right.
And that's a big problem.
Well,
That's a big sort of like roadblock, a mental roadblock is the timeline.
Yeah.
And you know that part of the brain that measures time, that keeps a list, that adds numbers, is not the place that opens up for the brain to communicate with the reproductive. So when we're on the table and we're in parasympathetic rest or dream state, AccuZone, whatever you want to call it, that's where the endorphin release and that cuts the cortisol. But we need to kind of track that in daily life, whether it's with herbs or setting the time. Ladies, take 20 minutes out of your day to just not be badgered by your own thoughts. It'll go a long way. But I think that's really the secret of this, what the secret sauce is, the secret ingredient is creating that space along with like a narrative where we can internalize success. We give the pointers. You're ovulating, your uterine lining is good, the blood work looks good, and the AMH is leveled out. There's no reason why you can't get pregnant naturally. I know you've been told that it can't happen, but I'm telling you that you got nothing to lose. Look, it's a math thing, right? You want to blow 20 grand on IVF? Go for it, right? You're gonna put on a table, if we took the statistics and said the worst clinic in the United States is 40% success rate. If we talk about Dr. Damon upstairs, he's at 60. That's a lot of variables. You're gonna take your money and you're gonna put 40% on black, that's what you're doing. But if you were to do the math and say, there's one way to make a baby, it's cheap and it's fun, and it costs you nothing, right? So if you were to say you had a 1% chance every time you were intimate as opposed to blowing 20 on black, where would you go? No, all respect to Wesley Snipes, of course, right? Always bet on black. But I'm saying, if you're gonna go for it, if you're gonna do it, you have nothing to lose. So just introduce the intimacy, because statistically speaking, statistically, clinically relevant numbers, people who were told that weren't gonna get pregnant always hit.
Yeah, and
on the tables.
I think if we marry everything together, but people also have to read. Excuse me, guys, I'm still somewhat of a podcast amateur, so I still leave my phone on.
No, we want that, because this isn't a podcast. This is a notcast. Go ahead.
No, but what I'm saying is actually that phone call took off my train of thought.
All right, don't worry about it. All right, so join us March 5th. We definitely want you to come by. You don't have to be a patient of the clinic. We want to create an environment, a narrative. We threw a lot of big words around and big ideas and big statements, but really what we want for you is we want everybody to get pregnant. If it's hearing it from the right person, telling Dr. Bays and Dr. Greg to be quiet, and hearing it from other person, whatever it gets you there, but let's get this done.
I think the most important thing for us with this support group is for it to be less about us and more about you. For you all to be able to explore your feelings without feeling any societal or emotional pressure to kind of put it in a socially acceptable package for it to be digested. All of you would be going through the same experience, so you can be as raw and as emotional as you need to be, as your soul needs to heal and to get through this. So we hope we'll see you here. It's March 5th. Yes.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. So hope to see you there.
Thank you.
Take care.
Was that an inquiry from